success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, you Roach Growth listeners. Today we got Robert Clinkenbeard. Clinkenbeard, did I say that right?
Clinkenbeard, yeah.
Okay.
Not bad.
Man, we said it like twice before we got on the mic, and I still was like, oh, man, am I saying this right? I want to fit into it. Okay, we're good.
I've been called lots of things, so yeah, you can pretty much get away with anything you want.
What's the worst?
Clinkenberg with a K. And they thought with my accent I was from Russia. And I'm thinking, Russia, wow, okay. Never heard that before.
Nostravia, I think that's how you say it. Cheers.
Cheers.
So you're being a master of many things. You had a commercial landscaping business. You do a lot of coaching now. You also do some real estate investing. How would you describe yourself? If you're basically in an elevator with someone and someone asks you, who are you, Robert? How would you describe yourself?
I'm saying I'm a business coach who's there to get you out of working in the business to working on your business.
Okay. Now, I've had a lot of coaches on this platform. Something that I started to more recently do, right, is ask the question of what separates you from other coaches.
I've been there. I've done that. I've took my business from growing it from scratch. We started off in a lockup, getting there at 4:30 in the morning, and over a period of 15 years, took it to 20 million revenue, 350 plus employees in multiple states, and then we sold to $4 billion companies. So I don't think there's many coaches that have done that. And then, on top of that, through my Ironman, I've now done 4 Ironman races. So I just have that discipline to be able to not only run my company, but go out and train 20 hours a week and be able to juggle that and a big family.
Maybe, did you say you started with a lockup?
Pretty much, just out of a garage, a small lockup. There was, there was just an 8x8 space, and that's how we started our landscape company.
Oh, okay. So a lockup is just basically a storage space?
So it's like a storage space, yeah.
Oh, okay. The first time ever heard that, so fantastic. I just wanted to make sure. So have you always had kind of the entrepreneur mindset? I mean, building your own company, that has to be very, or at least feel fairly daunting as you're growing, expanding, and then selling it off. Or have you always had the entrepreneur mindset?
I think that's developed since I moved across the States. I moved from Scotland to Arizona back in '99, and I worked for the government. I had a lot of basic jobs back in the UK, and I think I had some type of desire at the back of my mind. But I think when I moved to the States, I think that was just, it flourished. I think I saw a lot of people in Scottsdale, Arizona had these nice houses, beautiful cars, living this nice lifestyle. When I was back in Scotland, before I moved here, the rain would bounce off the window. I'd be depressed. It'd be dark outside. So I think as I came over here and I started asking questions, how are these people got this nice lifestyle? I started to get more and more intrigued and ask a lot of questions. And I think that's what prompted me into starting out my business in 2001.
So you were asking the questions of their lifestyle, how they accomplished that. I mean, what were the responses you were getting?
Most people were either had their own business, they were entrepreneurs, or maybe they were, executives, CEOs within larger, Fortune 100, 500 companies. So I thought, oh, well, that's intriguing. I don't know enough about that because we don't have that same type of levels of success across in the UK. So, once I started to figure out, there are people that could start their jobs, and then starting a job's not as daunting as was made out to me when I was young. So I started to ask all these questions when I first came across to Scottsdale, partly because I didn't really know many people when I first moved over here. So I was obviously just trying to get out there and network as possible, just to start to get to know people, make some friends. I was pretty intrigued at the beginning.
do you think the idea of entrepreneur is, I guess, perceived differently in back home where you're originally from to here in the States?
I think it's embraced more over here. I think there are some entrepreneurs, but I think it's definitely embraced and encouraged more over here. For some reason, I don't know if it's just the mentality or just how people grew up. It's just a totally different mindset. And I think there's more of a tendency to rely on the government to take care of them. Especially up in Scotland, I think it's maybe a little bit more entrepreneurial down in England and around to London. But yeah, we were not exposed to that same elements as you are over here.
So you said the government's take to help you out in Scotland. Like, what does that mean? Is it just not that want to build your own product, or is it just sitting on your laurels? Or
yeah, I think there's definitely sitting on your own laurels. There's definitely more handouts, but I almost feel as though when people start to rise above the crop, become a little bit more successful, there's a tendency for people to rebel against that and almost start to chop you down. I don't know. Again, I don't know why that is, but people will go out their way to try and bring somebody down. And so it's not very encouraging to go out there and be successful and have maybe some nice cars or some nice houses. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some out there, but when I came across the States and Scottsdale, and this is people's second or third houses and million or multi-million-dollar houses and Ferraris, and I'm thinking, wow, I've never ever experienced this in my life before.
what brought you to Scottsdale?
I think just that opportunities. My parents went on vacation there, so they kept talking about, hey, you need to go there. So I did go on vacation the year before. I was I'd just gone through a divorce, I'd struggling in my job a little bit, so came out just to experience that life out there and take advantage of that nice winter sun. And after coming back, I thought, you know what, life is too short. I need to find somewhere to have those opportunities. And within, let me think, 6 months of me going on vacation, I pretty much sold my house, sold my car, and arrived in Phoenix with a couple of suitcases. And I thought, right, I'm here to try that journey.
How old were you at that time?
I can't remember exactly, but probably early 30s. But what was interesting is here I walk into Phoenix Airport and I was thinking, well, where's the person with my name tag on it? Or where's that person giving me $1 million check? Or where's the limousine taking me to the Ritz Hotel to be part of that American dream? But of course, that wasn't quite there. So, I had no credit history. And I just thought, well, I'm figuring it out. I'm strong enough. I've got a good mindset on me growing up in Scotland. So, yeah, that's when I then start to ask a lot of questions, talk to a lot of people, and just try and figure things out.
When you're starting something from scratch, I mean, it can be very daunting. Was there ever a moment that you thought about going back to Scotland, going to something you knew?
There was not. I mean, definitely I had my down periods. I got depressed at times, but I think I'm just too headstrong and too determined to ever think about going back. I mean, I had some visitors and some family that came out here, but I was just determined to be successful. I mean, simple things like the sun, be able to play sports outside without dealing with the rain and cold. That was pretty appealing. So that Scottish determination, I think, really kicked in.
So acclimating to the States, acclimating to Scottsdale, you're talking to people. How did you mostly come across new friends, new colleagues, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly friends. I mean, I'm a big sports guy, so I used to play a fair bit of soccer. I used to play a lot of rugby. So going to the local rugby team, I ended up being really successful there. I was part of the Arizona State team, so we traveled all around the west coast of the States. So that definitely helped on the friendship side. And then business-wise, I used to work really hard during the day, and then at night I would go to some business events, some networking events, really just trying to get to know people. And as I developed that friendships, I started to pinpoint the people that did have their successful businesses and ask a lot of questions. And I think that's where, after working for a few people, and somebody came up to me at a networking event and said, well, why you not, when you start your own business, you've got the mindset, you've got that determination. Why don't you go out and do your own thing? And I thought, wow, never thought about that. So yeah, in 2001, because I didn't really have any, I wasn't married, no kids at the time. I thought, well, nothing else to lose. So I just jumped in and started the business in May of 2001.
How long were you working at I'm assuming it was a landscaping company that you were working at previously before you started your own, correct?
Yeah, landscape company. I worked there for roughly 2.5 years. It's probably one of the nation's largest companies, and great company. I learned a lot from them, but they were all around looking at how profitable they were rather than taking care of the clients. And I was more, hey, I want to take care of quality, I want to take care of my clients.
So you're having the positivity of taking the jump. You already took a big jump of moving to Arizona. Now, when did you take the jump, or how long was the process of taking the jump to starting your own company? So you're working at the company. How long did the first thought go, I can build my own company, till the time you actually left?
I was probably in the States for, I think, roughly 2.5, 3 years before I started my own company. So yeah, once I started to build some credit history, I got my social security number, started to get that networked out there. I started to get a little bit of a reputation of just being able to successfully follow through in what people asked me to do. Then I thought, well, maybe I'll give things a go. And, I had no concept at all to getting it to the size it was. I was just thinking, maybe if I'll hit $1 million a year, then I'd be happy. But it just started to snowball from there. So probably 2.5 years.
What do you think was the most difficult thing about growing your business?
Just that lack of business knowledge. I mean, I'm really good at, the landscape piece, but really struggled with the financial part. So cash flow was a huge issue at the beginning. I'm really just trying to juggle between, you're almost like a solopreneur where you're trying to get new sales in, you're trying to deal with the operation side of things, you're trying to network, you're trying to do all the social media. So trying to juggle all these things was pretty tough. But I'd say the biggest part I struggled with was the financial part, just because it wasn't easy for me.
And how did you kind of get through that?
I hired a part-time bookkeeper at first, and I still struggled for a number of years. And I think probably after 4 or 5 years, I brought in a fractional CFO. So they just helped to look at my books and giving me these high-level recommendations. And I had that fractional CFO through until early 2008. And I would say that person was pivotal on identifying where I wasn't making money in the business, which was key because we went into that downtime in 2008 through 10. And if we were still doing some specific work that we were struggling making money, then we could easily go out of business. But he helped to identify those early signs that we weren't making money here.
Oh, wow. And then from there, when was the 2008? When did you end up selling your company in the end?
Sold it in 2016. So I just realized that, some of the leadership team, and I had a partner at that time that I was beginning to go a little bit sideways with. And I still had that growth mindset. I still wanted to expand to different states. We even had some huge opportunities in Florida. And we were just, beginning to bump heads. So I just went back to him after, listening to some real thought leaders, Vern Harnish and some other great leaders out there. And I thought, well, life, again, goes back to that whole mindset when I left Scotland, is life is too short. I want to really figure out where I can take this. So went back to him and said, hey, let's either sell the company to each other or maybe we keep things together for a while and sell it to a larger company. And that's ultimately what we did. And in August 2015, we contacted an investment banker. He helped to package up our company, make it look really good. And then we put it out to market. We had roughly 17 companies that came to see us between August and December that year. By the time middle of January came in 2016, we had 7 offers on the table, and some really nice offers. So it gave us a nice position to be in.
Did you ever, and then when you sold it, did you ever have any regrets of not wishing you sold it?
I had regrets not being able to take the company where I wanted to take it. I definitely didn't miss my partnership arrangements. I ended up working for the parent company for 2 years out of a 3-year contract, and I was hoping at that time that we would go slightly different directions, as put us in different parts of this data. The buyers were 4 billion, 35,000 employees, so I was hoping that we'd somewhat get split up into that larger company, and that didn't quite happen. So yeah, I went through. I had probably more so of a bigger adjustment when I left the company after 2 years working with them, because I felt as though I had 16, 17 years of then suddenly being unplugged from my desk, from my desktop, from my office, and all my leadership team. And that was definitely a big struggle for me for probably 6 months. Figuring out what do I want to do next, and actually brought in a life coach to be able to just talk me through that. So that was probably more of a struggle to me than splitting up with my partner.
If you could look back at yourself, that person that was in the process of selling it, or even someone listening right now that's trying to sell their company or in the process of selling it, is there anything that they could do or you would have done to maybe transition you out a little bit smoother, I guess?
I think, first of all, I'd say, do they really want to sell? I mean, people talk about exit planning and they immediately jump to actually selling the company, but I think there's 2 or 3 different options out there. You could, pass it on to your employees. You can, find somebody that's going to run the business for you, and then you can go into different passions, but still get some cash flow from the business. Or yes, there's an ultimate sell. So I think that'd be the first question: is really truly determine if you want to sell it. Because even, I challenge people that, if it's making 15-20% net profit, that's a nice cash flow. If you take the money you get out of the business, if you do sell it, is there something that you could get a similar return if you put into the stock market or some other investment? So that's probably the biggest question right there. But and then the second part of that is what are you truly passionate about? Is there something that you really have more of a passion about, whether it be real estate, whether it be some, other, if you want to become an artist. I heard talking to somebody yesterday who'd sold their business and they were now doing a lot of art, something they were super passionate about, and have never had that opportunity before. So really truly think about, what do you want to do life after you selling your business?
Do you think it would be, you got a life coach after you sold the business, after you transitioned out. Do you think having a life coach before you transition out of the business would be positive, or? Yeah,
I would say having a life coach beforehand, because they can ask you some of those difficult questions and really ask you, what do you truly want to do, and then build that roadmap of where you're going. So I would say getting a life coach a little bit earlier, I think, would be key, because some people think, well, I'm going to go to the beach every day, or I'm going to play golf every day, and I think generally most people find you'll get pretty bored after that. So yeah, I think life coach beforehand would be super helpful.
And you talked about the idea of investing in real estate previously. Was that something you did while you were with the company, or has that been mostly after?
I had a couple of small investments. We had with our Nevada branch, we had a townhouse right on the strip, so that we used that as a little bit of an investment. We had another vacation house up in Flagstaff, Arizona. So, single family homes, a little bit of investment there. I unfortunately didn't take the pursuit of owning an office. I'd wish I'd done that earlier. I've had an office that I could have leased to the buyer after I'd sold my company. So I wish I'd done that. But I've definitely taken my real estate investing to another level. I'm now part of maybe syndicate, maybe 9 different apartments and a couple of commercial properties, multiple single family home rental properties. So I definitely enjoy the real estate now. I'm still learning a lot from other people, but yeah, I've taken it to a whole different level.
How involved are you with being that you're these purchases, owning these properties? It sounds like with groups. How involved are you with the day-to-day, or involved in the purchasing aspect? What's that look like for you?
No, not a huge amount. I rely on people who are the experts in there, so I'll definitely lean in them. My passion now is more coaching, going into different business owners. So some include some real estate companies and some real estate developers, and helping them scale up their business, so that, you know, what are some of the blind spots they're facing, what are some of the challenges with the people they need to build their business or systems. So yeah, I'll lean on the experts for my real estate stuff, but I know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
But I definitely enjoy that coaching part.
How did the coaching part come about? You're with the life coach, you left the company. Where did the transition come from, or when did that happen?
I think once the coach helped me to establish what my why is. So, you know, we went through a ton of exercises, and I figured out my why was to make a positive impact on others. So I thought, well, again, I've got all this experience of growing my business, making a ton of mistakes along the way. How can I go in and make a positive impact on business owners to take them to a place where they're actually enjoying their business again? You know, prime example, I have a client here locally who's running huge business, 35, 40 million a year, totally miserable, you know, not spending any time with his family, very little vacations. He was coming into work every day and just dealing with all the employee issues. Absolutely miserable, just wanted to get rid of the business without taking any of the value from it. And we got to a place through a period of 6 months to a year where we found somebody to effectively run the business for him. So it's like a COO person, and gave him the KPIs, the structure, and be able to run the business. So here we are now, nearly 2 years later. Again, the business is doing better than ever. The owner is off spending way much more time with his family, on vacation every month, and just in a lot better place. So that really sits well with me. I feel as though, yes, let's get all these owners out there that are really struggling, and they're almost hiding what the challenges they're facing. They're putting up that stone wall around them to give the perception of being happy. But I think when you actually dig a little bit deeper, a lot of them really struggle with all the different pressures on them.
How do you come across these individuals? How are you building your portfolio of people you're working with, the clientele? Is it strictly word of mouth, or is it, most business owners are probably getting your services? How does that come about?
Yeah, I do a fair bit of networking. I get a lot of referrals. Most of my work comes through referrals, but you know, I'm on social media. I do a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn. I have my own podcast show. So I'm trying to just cover all the different bases, but it's definitely nice when you get referred from existing clients where they can actually say, hey, you know, since Robert's come on board, you know, I'm making more profit. I'm spending less time at work. I'm working more on the business, and it's just it's super, super great to hear.
Now, let's say we're talking in 5 years from now, where are you going to be, and where's your coaching business going to be?
So I'm still wanting to keep growing my business. I've now added on some facilitation of some peer groups. So peer groups are groups of anywhere from 6 to 8 companies. And now I have a team of people that will go in and facilitate those meetings. So they'll meet typically 3 to 4 times a year, and all different types of businesses. And just, it's almost like a board of directors for some of these CEOs. So I want to try and bring more people onto my coaching team. So again, we're out there more making a difference. We have probably 60, 70 clients throughout the US and Canada. So I want to keep expanding that. I'd love to even move into Europe, and maybe even down to Mexico, Costa Rica. So if I could keep building onto my team and almost like embracing that roadmap that I train them on, and coming up with a system that's I can repeat around the world, then I think that would be really satisfying for me.
If let's say, not necessarily a a client, but someone that wants to be an employee and build their own coaching business, what are things that you look for in that person, bringing them on to your team?
It goes back to one of the things I've said at the beginning. If somebody can come onto my team who has experience as being an entrepreneur and successful entrepreneur, whatever size of company, then I think there's a lot more respect from the CEOs that need help. Because rather than somebody that's just gone to school and maybe learned a lot of good things, but if you've been through the grind and woken up some days in a sweat because you don't know how you cover payroll, or you've maybe learned how to scale your sales side of your business to be able to become like a national sales force. I mean, I'd love to hear from those types of potential coaches and be able to share that experience with other business owners. I think they can just relate more.
And one thing we haven't even touched on is your Ironman. When did that start? I mean, that has to be very daunting and kind of going that direction. What happened there?
So I as I said earlier, I was a big football, soccer guy. I moved into rugby, and I think once I started to get a little bit more damage I had a bunch of broken bones, broke my nose, I think 6 times in one season. So when I was going into client meetings with my face all messed up, I thought, maybe it's time for a change. So started getting a little bit into running. And then I met a local triathlon club within my neighborhood in Scottsdale. And, as my wife keeps calling, they're almost like a cult. They kept sucking me into that whole triathlon. But I think I really embraced that group because not only were they successful people in business, but they were just very dedicated. They were very determined, just played at that higher level. So it's just something that really I could relate to. So, I started off with doing some smaller races, some sprints and some Olympic distance. And you can't really see me here, but I'm a big 210, 220 rugby player. So if you could see me swimming, my my feet are dragging along. So, I mean, I literally could swim one length of the pool doing breaststroke when I first started training for a race. And through motivation, through surrounding myself with the right people, then I got that training needed to start doing some longer distance races. So, back in 2009 was my first Ironman race in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. And I finished it in just over 11 hours. So, again, back at that time, our company was cranking. We were doing, easily 19, 20 million, had all these employees. And here I was dedicating 20, 25 hours a week training. So I had to be like super hyper focused on, my training plan, make sure I had a training plan. I had to prepare the night before, had to make sure I carved out at least 2 or 3 hours a day of training. But meanwhile, running my own business, going into meetings, being prepared for agendas. So when I started to think about, well, how can I somewhat write down my story about my book, I said, well, how can I relate both the training for an Ironman race versus running a business? And there's a lot of similarities where, you can't just come into work every day and just maybe expect some more revenue to be coming in. Why don't you build a roadmap or a training plan on where you're going in the future, 10, 15 years out, and start working your way back? It's the same with a race. If you've got a race that's 6 to 12 months out, write down your plan, look at what you need to do every single day, and be intentional about where you're going, where your growth journey is going. So, I started to write my book. I got my book published, I think, roughly about 2 years ago. It's a short book, 100 pages long, but there's a lot of things that you can compare between doing some triathlon training and running your business.
Well, thank you, Robert, for being here. So the best way for people reaching out to you if they're looking to get coaching, is it through your website, or what's the best platform?
Yeah, probably the website, the Radix Group, RADIX, the Radix Group, LLC.com. Or if people wanted to connect to me through my LinkedIn profile, be happy to connect with them or send them a sample of my book. They can get my book through Amazon or through my website. But short read, 2 or 3 hour read.
Yeah, no, very, very short. I mean, thank you for being here, Robert. Hopefully everyone got some great nuggets from here. Robert's information is in the show notes right there. I think the roadmap, I mean, that for everyone, I mean, it can seem very daunting if you said, oh, I sold my business, yada, yada, yada. I sold my business to $1 billion company. You go, well, how does it start? It started with one lawn to the next lawn, to the next lawn, to the next lawn. Just had a roadmap. And that's, I think, a huge takeaway, I think, for anyone listening is things seem daunting if you don't have a roadmap.
Yeah, and don't focus too much on the ultimate goal. If you can have some small wins along the way, daily wins, weekly wins, then you're slowly going to progress. But yeah, it's just like I'm not encouraging people to go out and do a triathlon. But if you're not exercising right now, then maybe just start with a walk around the block, and then next day maybe try a little bit further. So yeah, you just slow wins and celebrate them along the way.
Well, thank you again, Robert. Thank you everyone for listening to the Road to Growth podcast. Please subscribe, please share, and go find Robert. Bye, everyone.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.